I create an object only, that would be allocated some memory. So when a class is defined, no memory is allocated, but when it is instantiated, that is when an object is created, then only the memory is allocated. Okay, try to understand this. So whenever you're working with the concept of class, you have to work with an object in order to access the members. Next, talking about inheritance, I told you inheritance is a property by which one class takes the properties of other class. So if at all I've declared a class called A with n number of functions, n number of variables, and if at all I want to create a class B and I say that class B inherits the properties of class A, so automatically whatever is there in class A, that would be automatically coming into class B. So B is inheriting the properties of A. That is the concept of inheritance. So you need not write again the functionality of whatever was performed in class A. Rather, you would be working with directly using the concept of inheritance. Okay. Next, I'm going with polymorphism. Poly means many. Okay, so one particular thing doing many activities. That is a briefing. We would be working on polymorphism in the future classes. Abstractions means hiding the functionality. Hiding the functionality. Sorry, it's not hiding the functionality, hiding the internal details and working with the functionality. So it's like I've taken an example of a phone call yesterday. So whenever I want to make a phone call, I'm least bothered about how that phone call is being made. But I'm interested in dialing only the phone number, and once it gets connected to the other person, I'll just talk. I'm not bothered about how it is getting connected. All that internal details are hidden, and that particular concept is called as abstraction. Okay, and then encapsulation. Encapsulation is defined as binding of data and the member functions. Okay, you are trying to bind together the concept of the member functions and the member variables in something which is called as a class over here. Okay, right. So all these things would be coming in your future classes. We would be working with examples on each one of these concepts. So we'll be creating a class, we'll be working with objects, we have a separate unit on inheritance, different types of inheritance, what is polymorphism, everything we would be working in the next units to come. Now, once we plan to learn a new programming language, we should understand the structure of that programming language. So that is what is meant by the structure of a C++ program, and the structure includes C++ headers, that is nothing but your header file section, your class definition section, which is not mandatory, your member function definition, and then followed by a main function. And the other PPT shows you some modified version of the previous one. So again, I have a header file declaration section over here. Global declaration section, I'm just trying to add some global declaration wherein I can declare variables which would be used throughout the program, all the functions, everything. Then I've got class declaration. Within that class, I can have member functions. Within that class, I can have member functions. Then I have a main functions. And if at all required, again, I can work with definition of the member functions if required, or else it's up to you. Okay, and see, in C++ we have a flexibility. So it's not necessary that you're talking about C++ to be an object-oriented programming language. You should be only using the concepts of C++. That's nothing but your OOPS, which is inheritance, all that stuff. So you have a flexibility of writing a program without a class or with a class. So you can write a program using the concept of a class, you create a class, work with a class in the program, or you eliminate the concept of a class. Okay, so you can write a program in two ways. And most important thing I missed over here is Actually, that is not a compulsory section. You have something called as a comment section in every programming language. So similarly, C++ also supports the concept of comment section. Okay. To start with, comments are vital elements of a program that is used to increase the readability of a program. Same, sometimes what happens is a program need not be necessarily written by you people. Okay, so I might not be the person who is writing the program, but I should have the knowledge of what actually is written in the program. So that understandability is given by the concept of comments. So you are going to use the concept of comments in order to make the program readable. So if at all I say I'm trying to use a statement result is equal to a plus b, I'm just trying to use a statement result is equal to a plus b. So some people might not know what this particular statement is trying to do. Most of you might know, and some might be not knowing. If at all they don't know what programming is, they might not be knowing what is the use of result is equal to a plus b and display result. So what I'll do using the concept of a comment is I'll try to tell the person who is using the program that this particular statement is used to add two numbers and put it into a variable called as result. That is what I'm trying to do, and comments are ignored by the compiler. Okay, and as an example, a comment can be name of the program, so what a particular statement is trying to do, who has written the program, on what particular date that program was written, all that stuff would be covered under the comment section. And talking about the different styles of comments, we have got a single line comment and a multiple line comment. Okay, so if at all you want to limit your comment to a single line, then you can use the concept of a single line comment. So if at all you are interested in writing a comment which spans over a single line, then you can work with a single line comment that is represented using double slash. That is represented using double slash. Okay, next, I've given an example, a program to add two numbers. So before actually I start working with a program, I'm just trying to say that this program is used to add two numbers, and that can be represented using a single line comment. Okay, program to add two numbers. Fine. Then you have got the second comment style, which is nothing but multi-line comments, which is represented in between a slash followed by an asterisk and ends with an asterisk followed by a star. So as an example, I've just taken an example to demonstrate a C++ program. Okay, that can be made into a single line comment also, but here what I'm trying to do is, in order to explain what a multi-line comment is, I've made that into two lines. So these two lines, since they are embedded between the symbols used for multiple line comments, again this would also be ignored by the compiler. And be careful while you're working with the concept of comments. Don't try to mix the syntax and the comments together so that the compiler throws an error. Okay, and then you have got the concept of including header files, which is represented by a symbol called hash. So once the compiler sees hash symbol, it assumes that these are the pre-processed directives which are processed before the actual program execution starts. So these are something wherein the predefined functions or system defined functions are taken care of. Examples of those are IOStream for your input output operations. That is nothing but cin and cout in this particular programming language. Cin is used to enter values and cout is used to display values. So how you are using the concept of cin and cout, I'll let you know. Some of the examples I've just taken only two examples. You have got string, you have got file, all that stuff. I've taken hash include math and hash include time.h. So this is about your header files, which I think I've clearly told you in the previous class. Now all of you know main function. Main function is the starting point of any programming language. You have seen it in C, and it would be similar with respect to C++ also. I've taken a small C++ program over here and just taken what is actually required. Okay, I told you I have to include iostream, hash include iostream, which is nothing but the header file called iostream. Then I'm working with int main, wherein integer is the return type of this particular function. Then I've got the starting of the main function, ending of the main function. In between these two braces, I've got a statement called welcome. Okay, the functionality of std : cout would be displaying this particular message onto the console output, which is nothing but your monitor. Okay, so cout is a function which is used to display the contents. Okay, so what is what is std? This is termed as a scope resolution operator, which would be coming in the operators concepts. Okay, now, so this was a program which was written without using the concept of a class. I hope you understand that. It's similar to your C program. There you used to write hash include stdio.h, and here you are just working with iostream, and there you have used something called as printf welcome, and here you are using something called as cout. Okay, that is the difference between your C and your C++ with respect to this particular program. Try to understand. Now, I'm working with a program which calculates the area using the concept of a class. So yesterday I spoke about using namespace std. I clearly explained you the difference. What is the difference of using and not using namespace std? So using, I've written hash include iostream using namespace std. Okay, now I'm working with the concept of a class. This is a small program which is a continuation of your structure of C++. I told you I can work with the C++ in two ways. One is with a class, the other one is without a class. So the previous example was without using a class, and this example is using a class. Okay, so classroom. So class is the keyword over here through which you are declaring a class called as room. Okay, classroom, followed by you have to open the class using a curly brace, and whatever the data members and whatever the member functions, whatever the member data is required and whatever the member functions are required, you have to declare within the class. Okay, you can have any number of classes. I'm only working with a single class over here. So already you know the concept of public, private and protected. Okay, you might just have heard about what is public, what is private and what is protected. So public is throughout the program, it can be used throughout the program. Private is to that particular class. I'm only working with these two things as of now. So in the classroom, I've worked with a specifier called as public followed by a colon. That is the syntax now. Okay, under that, whatever you're declaring, that would be public. Okay, it can be accessed outside of the program also, outside of the class also. Okay, so here what I'm trying to do is public followed by integer is the data type, length is the name of the variable. I've given you clearly what way you can name the variables. Okay, in that fashion only I've just declared the variables. There's something called as integer length, there is something called as integer breadth. Okay, and after that I'm working with a member function which says that I have to input data. So whenever I try to run this function, I have to enter the values of length and breadth. So clearly I'm using the concept of a single line comment over here, which is specifying that input data is a member function. Okay, this is a single line comment. It specifies that it is a member function, and this is the definition of the member function. So cout, I told you, it displays whatever is there within the cout. Enter the length and the breadth, and here I'm using an input function which is called as input. Cin, I'm using 2 greater than symbols followed by length, 2 greater than symbols followed by breadth. And while entering the value summa, you need not specify the control strings over here. As you do in your scanf statement, scanf percentile D, address of length, address of breadth, that is not required over here. Cin, this is the way you're going to work with the input. Cin greater than simple, followed by length, followed by breadth. So I'm trying to enter these two values from the keyboard, and this particular message would be displayed onto the output screen. This is the functionality of my input data, and again I'm working with something called as one more member function, which is calculate area. Okay, now I'm working with something called as calculate area. There I'm just trying to use these two variables, length and breadth, and printing the area. So cout length into breadth. That's it. Or you can simply say it multiplication of two numbers, whatever. This is just an example program. Okay. And after that, I'm closing the calculate area, then closing the class. Every class declaration ends with a semicolon. Class declaration. So this is the opening of the class and this is the end of the class, followed by a semicolon. So once you are done with the declaration of the class, then I told you whatever these particular statements have written, this will not have any memory amount. Even though I have declared two variables, integer length, integer breadth, based on the size with respect to the compiler, it might be 2 plus 2 or 4 plus 4, but no memory is allocated until this particular point. Then what I'm trying to do is I'm working with the concept of the main function integer main. Then I'm using a single line command, create object of room class. So for this particular room, I'm trying to create an object. So creating an object is quite simple over here. Take the name of the class followed by the object name. So room 1. Here room 1 is the object of this particular class called room. Okay, room 1. And then in order to call the member functions of the class, you have to use the object name dot function name. You have to use the object name dot function name. It's clearly written over there, ma. Room 1 is the object name. I'm using room 1 dot input data. So once I use this function, the control will go over here and whatever the functionality is written within the input data, that would be called, and you're just trying to enter the values of length and breadth. And then you're working with room1 dot calculate area. So what is the functionality of the function calculate area would be called, and that would be displayed onto the monitor. So this is a simple example on how you're working with the concept of a class, creating an object, calling the functionality with respect to the object. Is it clear, ma? Just go through the example once. If at all you have any questions, you just put it on the chat box. I'll just give you 2 minutes. Yes, ma. Any question? I've just stopped sharing the screen, ma. I'll again restart it. So, see, ma, see out is just like the concept of sir, in C we use ampersand for scanf. You do not require any control strings, ma. Percentile E, percentile F, nothing is required in CN. As of now, you work with the concept of objects, ma. Please work with the concept of objects, create objects, then only call the functions. Work with the objects now because you have to go in a process. Work with objects. Why we are using the concept of namespace over here is because instead of working with std : cout ma, only if at all I want to use the concept of cout, I'm going to include using namespace std. Okay, that we will be clearing it in the future classes clearly. As of now, in order to work with cout function directly, directly, I'm using the concept of your namespace. That's it. Is it clear? Jafaruddin? Uh, CMA, starting half of the program is only working or only the creation of a class. So I am working with creation of the class, and first half of the program deals with only the creation of the class. So I told you a class binds together data as well as the member functions. So I'm working with two variables called integer breadth, integer length, and then I'm working with the concept of member functions. In order to work with those particular things only, I'm creating the class. Is it okay? I think someone had a question with respect to the first half of the program. Any problems, ma? If at all you're not using the concept of 1 second, ma. I'll just 1 second. I'll just share the screen. Must see. Again, I've shared the program for you completely. Okay, see, the first half refers to the working of a class over here. The same program you can directly write in the main function. There's no issue with that. Okay, there's no issue with that. But in order to explain you the concept and working of a class and an object, I am just using the concept of a class over here. So clearly I've mentioned over here, creating a class. Creating a class, and whenever you want to create a class, you have to use the keyword class followed by the name of the class you want to work with. So this particular thing could be anything: class rectangle, class KMIT, class CSE, anything of your choice. The name of the class, it's again up to you. Then I'm working with the access specifiers over here. So I think ma'am told you three things, ma: public, private, and protected. There were three access specifiers. I'm using the concept of public over here in order to make whatever the functionality I'm writing within the class to be visible out of the program. I'm using the concept of a public over here. Then declaring two variables called length and breadth in the public domain. Then I'm working with input data, which is a member function. In that input data, I'm just trying to work with entering the values of length and breadth. And then I'm working with something called as calculate area, one more function, one more member function. There, cout length and breadth. Length and breadth. Okay. length into breadth would give you the value of area. Then what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create an object. I'm working with objects as of now, nothing else. Room 1, room1 dot input data. I'm calling the first member function room1 dot input data, and I'm calling the second input function room1 dot calculate area. Is it fine or still any questions? We will be having a session on the access specifiers. What is private, what is protected, what is public, clearly will be telling you. Now I'll just give you a difference of private and public. I'll just try to modify the program, and I hope you can understand using that particular concept, Ganesh. Okay, I'll just try to modify the program. See, try to see the changes, whatever I'm doing to the program now. Okay, all of you look at the screen now. Where I'm trying to modify the program, just try to look it over there. Okay, now see, uh, here I've used the concept of public over there. Fine. So public followed by, I'm using uh, directly, since I've used the concept of public access specifier over there. So it means that whatever you are writing beneath it would be public. Now what I'm trying to do is the functionality input dot data I'm trying to make private. Okay, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make the input data function as private. Now what will happen? So see, the basic difference between public and private over here is private is accessible only within the class. Private is accessible only within the class in which it was declared. Public is throughout the program. Okay, public is it can be accessed outside. Now, if at all I've made these two functionalities private, input data function as private, calculate area function as private, and I'm trying to access these two functions outside of the outside of the class. Now, what will happen is the compiler gives you an error because we have made input data function as private and calculate area as private. You cannot use it outside of the class. Now, how do I use that particular that private data outside of the class? Again, what you have to do. So firstly, is this particular declaration valid? Can I use private data within a class? Is the first question. So if at all I cannot use the concept of private access modifier, then there is no use of creating a private access modifier, access specifier. So within the class, I can work with private, public, and protected. But outside of the class, I cannot use the private members. Is it clear, ma? Is it clear? Is it clear? I think Ganesh had a doubt. Okay. Now, how do I access the private member function which was declared inside a class from the outside world? Can I do that? Can I do that? Now, we will clearly explain you the concept of private, protected, and public with example programs. Don't worry about that. You are just in the beginning of the programming language. Okay. Now, see, I'm again sharing my PPT. I just try to make some changes over there. Now, I think it's clear, ma. Now, see, uh, input data function is private, and I want to use input data outside of the class. Maybe I want to use the functionality. Then what I have to do is, in order to use private data, I have to call that private function within the member function of the class itself, within the member function of the class itself. So what I'm trying to do over here is just try to look at the pointer now. I'm making the other function public, 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 and now calculate area becomes public, since I'm using the concept of public access specifier over there. And what I'm trying to do is I am trying to use the concept of input data function in this particular functionality. So now what happens? Calculate area is taken as public and it is using a private function of that particular class, so I can access that input data which was private using the public access specifier functionality. Now what I have to do over here is in the main function I have to eliminate this particular statement because it is private. So room1.input data does not work, but this particular changes in the program will also give the same result when it was completely public. Is it clear, ma? So the basic difference between private and public, I'm just um, giving you the basic differences over here. How they will change everything will let you know in the future classes. Is it clear, or still you have any questions with this particular thing, ma? You can clearly understand the concept of protected while you're working with inheritance. We'll be giving you a table. Based on that, you can clearly understand. Is it okay? Any problems you have now? The default would be private, Soumya. If you don't mention private or public, then the default would be private. Everything would be taken as private. Is it okay? Can I move forward? Okay. Yeah. So this was the program with some modifications I've done. Okay. Next, case letters, anything is valid. Usually start with letter as the first character while naming variables. Blank spaces are not allowed if at all your variable name is more than a single word. I've given you an example, maybe average height. Average space height is not valid. Rather, you can use the concept of average underscore height. Okay. So whatever the keywords that are present in your C++ cannot be used to name the variable names. Variable names are case sensitive. A variable name can consist of 31 characters, and if at all your length is more than 31 characters, that would be skipped. Okay. and it can be declared using the valid set of data types. So this is about your variable declaration and initialization. And I think yesterday we have worked with two small programs. Okay, so to show the usage of variables in C++. Now, I asked you a question yesterday. So I have declared a global variable by name in float f and a local variable by name float f. So whether it's valid declaration or invalid declaration, I did not get any comments on that. So please try to do that. Okay, now data types in C++. Okay, so in order to make it simple, it's the representation of data. So data types is the representation of data. That is, what type of value can be stored into a variable and what is the memory occupied by that particular variable. That is given clearly by the concept of data type. So if at all I say that I am working with an integer data type, so I can only store integer values and the memory would be 2 or 4 bytes based on the compiler. Okay, so data types define the type of data a variable can hold. Okay, so it defines what type of data a variable can hold. So if at all I use a character data type, I say only I can work with characters. If at all I say float, I will only work with float data. And if at all I say something else, I can only work with that particular something. So as in your C programming language, data types in C++ are divided into three broad categories. One is your primitive data types. The second one is user defined data types, and the third one is derived data types. Primitive data types, or you can say built-in data types, whatever. Then you have user defined data types. Then you have the concept of derived data types. I've given few examples in primitive: integer, character, float. Structure, union, enum comes under user defined data types. Pointers, arrays, references in C++ would be coming under your derived data types. So we would be working on all these things. Now see, what are primitive data types? So primitive data types are built-in or predefined data types which can be directly used. And examples of those are clearly I've written over there: integer, character, boolean, floating, void, all that stuff. And talking about user defined data types, these data types are defined by the user. So based on the requirement of the user, he is just trying to define. I've taken an example. I'll just let you know. I've just taken a small example on user defined data types. I'll just let you know. And some of the examples of user defined data types are class, structure, union, enumeration, then derived data types. So if at all you're trying to create a new data type from the existing data types, then we call them as derived data types. The best examples are arrays, pointers, etc. Okay, arrays, pointers, etc. And while you're working with data types, you've got modifiers with respect to data types also. So modifiers would be, when I'm talking with respect to integer, you have a normal integer, a short integer, and a long integer. And then they are again subdivided into signed integer and unsigned integer. So you can have a signed integer, unsigned integer, signed short, unsigned short, signed long, unsigned long. So you would be having around 6 different kinds of integer values, integer data types to work with. Usually we go with normal declaration integer a, short a. If at all you want to work with specific positive or negative values, you can go with signed or unsigned. It's up to you. Okay. Then for character, we have signed and unsigned. For float, we have float, long, long double. So this is the matter of memory. Okay. So if at all you want to store bigger values, you go for long or long double. If at all you want to store some small values, you go with float. So based on the compiler, float would take 4, long would take 8, all that stuff. It's based on the compiler. Integer, I think 2 or 4 bytes. Short will take 1 byte. Based on the compiler, you can write a program in order to see the sizes of different data types. Now, I've just taken a small program in order to find the size of a data type. Okay, so see, without a class I'm working this program with. I'm not using the concept of a class over here. So hash include iostream, using namespace std, because I'm trying to eliminate std colon colon while working with input output over here. So using namespace, integer main cout. So I told you, while you're working with cout, whatever is there in the cout, that would be written onto the monitor. So there is a special operator called size of, which would display the size of the data type. So I've used that functionality in order to determine the size of a character data type over here. Okay, that particular program is written over here. So size of character maybe 1 byte. That would be the output of the program. Okay, now, so what are the different data types that are existing in integer data, float data? Everything I've written over there. We have integer, long in, short in, signed, unsigned. Already I've explained you that. Now the second type is user defined type. So we have already seen the concept of a class. Class we have seen already. What is a class? All that stuff with an example program I've already clearly told you. Next, I want to create my own data type using the concept of type definition. So I'm working with a small program in order to work with a user defined data type def. Now see, I'm just changing the name over here. I cannot change the functionality, remember. So hash include iostream, then I'm using the concept of type def and change integer to CSC. So once I change integer to CSC, what will happen is whenever I want to declare an integer variable, I have to use the concept of CSC. So what is happening over here is indirectly I'm trying to create a new data type by name CSC that would have all the properties of integer functionality. So using namespace std, I've removed that so that I can use the scope resolution operator over here. Now see, usually this is the concept of a global declaration. All of you know this, already I've worked with this. CSC A is equal to 10. So usually what we do is, I work with the concept of, while declaring variables, what I do, I say that this is integer A of 10. But what I've done is I'm trying to work with a newly created data type. What is that newly created data type? That is CSC. So whenever I'm using integer A, what will happen? The compiler throws an error. So I have to change this into CSC A. CSC A is equal to 10. Then CSC would be return type over here because it is replacing int. Then I'm working with CSC A is equal to 22. CSC B is equal to 30, all that stuff. In the for loop also, CSC I is equal to 0, I less than 5, I plus plus. Okay, so you have a flexibility of declaring variables anywhere in the program. Fine. So now this program would execute because I'm working with a newly created data type called as CSC. I hope it's clear to you. So this is a small program on working with type def. That is nothing but your user defined data type. And again, the derived data types, which uses the concept of predefined data types, which is nothing but your standard data types. What we have to do is we have to use the concept of working with the derived data types, and we'll be working with in a separate topic on those things. Okay, so is it clear as of now? You have any questions? You have any questions? You can ask now. Akshya, the problem is I have taken the global variable and the local variable with the same name. Okay, I've taken the global variable and local variable with the same name. So in order to differentiate global and local variable, I'm using the concept of a scope resolution operator in that particular statement. Okay, you can try to execute that statement. You can try to execute that statement using a directly and colon colon a one more time so that you'll understand the program. Is that okay, Akshay? I'm just showing the program once again, Karthik. 1 minute. Yeah, same. See, now try to execute this particular program without using this particular operator, colon colon. So what would be the output of this particular statement? Try to execute. If at all you have an IDE present with you, or you can have div C++, anything ma. And try to execute the same program using this particular operator. This will clearly explain the previous question what I have asked you 5 minutes before. Is it okay? Shall I move on to the next topic, or you have any questions, ma? A return 0, I think that won't be a big issue, ma. It will give you just a warning. If you want me to include that, I'll do that for you. And if at all I want to add some more thing, I can say 10. A plus B minus C plus 10. So it is a combination of variables, constants, and operators. So you have got different kinds of operators now. All those operators can be included in order to form a expression. And once you understand what an expression is, you have to understand how a particular expression is evaluated. Okay, so a small example I've given A plus B plus C A plus B minus C plus 10 is termed as an expression, and expression can be of different types. So I've got something called as integral expression, floats, relational, logical, bitwise expressions are there. You've got several, and you can also say that you have an arithmetic expression wherein the expression is consisting of only arithmetic operators. Okay, so you have integral, float, relational, logical, bitwise expressions. I've given some small examples. I've taken three variables. So integer, I hope it's visible for you. Integer ijk, I is equal to j plus k. I am highlighting this. I've taken integer I is equal to j plus k, ijk, and I is equal to j plus k. What kind of expression would be this in the above five expressions? Just try to put it on the chat box. What kind of expression could be that? Are you able to understand what an expression is? Good. So Soumya has written it's an integral expression. Varaprasad, fine ma. Okay. Since we are working with integral values and the resultant is an integer, that forms the concept of an integral expression. Okay, I hope you clearly understand that. And then I have a float expression ma. So I'm working with float ij. I is equal to I plus j. And then I'm just briefing it out. So expressions. Then I have a relational expression which produces a result of type Boolean. Okay, relation expression produces a result of type Boolean. So whenever you're working with two operands, you use a relational operator in between those two operands. It results in either true or false. So I've taken an example, m greater than n. So m is greater than n, then I get result with respect to either true or false. And one more expression I've taken, m plus n double equal to 100. So I'm checking the equality of the LHS and RHS over there. That is the concept of your relational expression. Then you have got the concept of logical expressions. So it is a combination of two or more relational expressions. So what I can say over there is, if at all I'm working with relation 1, LOGI, logical operator, relation 2. What would be the output of this particular statement? What would be the output of this particular statement? If at all you are able to see this, please answer. Is it clear, the different kinds of expressions? Then you have bitwise expressions, which would be working at bit level. I'll give you the tables for the logical operators, bitwise operators in the next session. So what are the different kinds of logical? In order to work with evaluation of expressions, we have to complete the operators first. Then the precedence of operators, everything needs to be taken care of. Okay, so in the next session, I'll be working with operators in C++. What is an operator? What are the different kinds of operators that are existing? then the precedence, I'll give you a precedence chart. And after that, we'll take a small example on expressions, work with evaluation of expressions. Is it fine, Ma? Any questions you have? Any problems, Ma? Have stopped sharing the screen. Are you were you able to see the screen, Ma? My std : cout is your output statement, Amma. That is your output statement. That is nowhere related to the variable. Amma, what is the use of logical operator? So you might, Ganesh, you might have heard logical and logical or. Logical and logical or. What? So when you use the concept of logical and, when you use the concept of logical or. Okay, whenever you want to combine more than one condition, whenever you want to combine more than one condition, it's like character double equal to A, or logical or character double equal to E, logical or character double equal to I. So whenever you want to check whether a given character is a vowel or not, you have to check multiple conditions. So whenever you want to check multiple conditions, you are using the concept of a logical operator. That's nothing but your logical or. Is that okay, Ganesh? Manisha, I did not get your question, Ma. We need not to use, what is that? For loops, if at all you're working with single statement or multiple statements, based on that, you have to work with braces, Ma. Is that okay? Any more questions, Ma? So in the next class, we'll discuss about what are the different kinds of operators in C++, uh, and then we will try to evaluate a small expression based on the precedence of operators. Okay, then I'll stop the class over here so that you can work with your quiz, and if at all left with some time, you can just work with a small program.